I will say I really enjoy this podcast. I do not like Legos. I have multiple children, so my house looks like this. So the idea that I left my house to come here to look at this is so funny, but it's fine. I'm happy to be here, and let's make some Legos.
Welcome to Building Friendships. I am your host, John Sosis, and we have a cool episode today. I'm very excited for today's guest. First off, just shout out to Brickcraft, who sponsored my building birthday this weekend. They have these cool champagne bottles, which are awesome build.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Today's guest is one of my favorite comics, writers. He's written on the Goldbergs. He's currently working on the Jetsons, which is why we'll get to the set that we're getting to. But Mr. Dan Levy.
How's it going, guys?
You know,
it's just you. There's not really a crowd.
Yeah, we have an audience of two in studio, but yeah, thank you for doing this.
No problem, no problem.
So I thought we would go back to the 60s. I am going to be doing the 1966 Batman Batmobile.
Incredible.
There's zero chance I finish this today or even get close.
Right.
I didn't realize how many bags there were. But you're working on the Jetsons. I figured we had to go as close as we can get with Lego, and we're going with the Flintstones.
That works for me. I will say I really enjoy this podcast. I do not like Legos. I have multiple children, so my house looks like this. So the idea that I left my house to come here to look at this is so funny, but it's fine. I'm happy to be here, and let's make some Legos.
So is the dislike because you're just always seeing it, or do you genuinely dislike building them?
No, I don't mind building them. It's just that I'm constantly cleaning them up. You know,
Got
constantly
it.
cleaning them up. And
Yeah.
But my cousin Michael, growing up, he was a big Lego guy, and he had his basement was the entire Lego city. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's my goal. So when I moved from New York, I had a second bedroom there, and that was going to eventually be my Lego city, because who needs a guest bedroom in New York?
Are you single?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
You might want to wait till you're not single to then get the Lego room. That might be weird.
Okay, so that's the problem I have now, because when you walk into my place here, so I sold my New York place. When you walk into my place here, the first thing is IKEA cabinets of Lego. I don't know if it's worse to tell the girl that they're mine or I have a kid. Like, I'm ready to lie and be like, oh no, that's my kids, and then let her deal with that.
I think it's worse that you don't have kids.
Oh, okay.
Well, that is I would say, a Lego red flag.
To be perfectly fair, that's why I don't go to Legoland.
Okay,
That's
Legoland sucks. I've been to Legoland.
I went there.
Legoland is super small. I guess, not that it sucks, it's just that it's a letdown compared to, say, a Disneyland. It's very small, and it's a lot of Legos. Someone like you, I'm surprised you don't live there. Again, Lego's not my favorite thing, so I don't like to go to Legoland. Plus, driving to San Diego is actual hell.
Yeah, I went there once, and it was, so they give you, there's a shopping pass for like the nerds that don't want to walk around the park. You could pay for a full ticket, go into the park for an hour, and if you come out within the hour, they refund you the ticket. So it's like a shopping pass where they expect you to just go spend money in the store. So I'm not obsessed enough to be hanging out in Legoland without children, but we have been there, and we probably won't go back. So we met at the Comedy Store.
Yes.
I started seeing you there more recently.
Yep.
Where are you from originally? Are you from out here?
I am from Stamford, Connecticut.
Oh, and I just saw you perform there, so you just performed back home.
Yeah, just performed back home. It was awesome.
It was great?
It was so good. Yeah, it was great. Because growing up there, Stamford, it was always a city close to New York, but now it's like a poppin' city. So now it's just there's so many restaurants and there's an actual real comedy club. So it was so fun to go back. It's a really cool city. A lot of people live there. It's funny because you grew up there. You're like, I'm in Stamford. I rollerblade here. Like, what is this place? And now like everyone. So many young people are there, and it's really close to New York. So,
and that's what I think part of the selling point is. It's close to New York, and you're not. I mean, I guess I don't think you're paying New York prices, but it's got to be not the cheapest.
Yeah, I mean, but nothing is cheap now. So
yeah, that's
I don't know
fair.
I don't know where you live. Anywhere now, everywhere's $1 trillion. You're like, yeah, I guess that's what it is now.
Well, that's been my issue.
Eggs are $19.
That's been my issue with my Lego room that we were just talking about off air. Is that I don't see myself being able to ever afford an actual house here that could afford for an extra Lego room.
Yeah, it's hard when you go on Zillow and you click in Lego room. Not a lot of stuff.
Nobody
pops
has
up.
one that's built in. LA doesn't have basements because of the earthquake, as far as I know.
There was an earthquake in Boston today, though, so the
Was
world
there?
is officially ending. Yeah, I know this will air different times, but yeah.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't. Nobody's going to be like, hey, wait.
Hey,
that
what
was
just
no-
happened?
They're not coming here for the news. I can assure you
Yeah.
that. So you grew up in Stamford.
Grew up in Stanford. I did tons of comedy and improv and musical theater as a kid, and then I went to Boston, went to Emerson, and I did stand up like in high school. And I was always sort of like doing sketch stuff and doing all that. And then when I got to Emerson in Boston, I started performing. I get jumped right into the Boston comedy scene, started hitting the open mics like that. I think it was the first Sunday of freshman year. I went to Dick Doherty's Comedy Vaults, met comedian Dan Mintz, and bombed, and then went back the next week and then just kept on performing. And it was a really good time. It was the time when Gary Goldman and Eugene Merman were like the kings of
Okay,
Boston.
love Gary.
Gary's so great, Eugene's so funny, and Gary just did the Tonight Show, and Eugene just did Aspen, and it was like so exciting to see these people who were like making it, and they were both super nice. And then and there was lots of comedy. Then it was Comedy Connection was still there, Comedy Studio, Dick Doherty's Comedy Vault, 1,000 open mics. I ran a show at Starbucks. It was great.
So what was the thing that sent you said you did improv? What was the thing that sent you to stand up?
It's the only thing I've ever wanted to do.
Really? And was improv the gateway into it, or was it?
Yeah, I
just...
mean, improv was comedy, but like I always, since I was 9, wanted to be a stand-up comedian.
Okay.
And that was just the only thing I ever wanted to do, and it's the only thing I ever
Really?
did. Yeah, because I was at Emerson, and then I was doing lots of comedy. Then I started doing lots of comedy contests, and then I started like winning those contests, and I won this college contest. So then once I won this Aspen Comedy Festival, funniest college comedian in the country, still got the title because the festival ended the year after I did it. I went and did a bunch of college shows, and then I was like on college. Then I did like a college tour and did all that stuff when I graduated.
That's funny. That's literally how my stand-up started. I wasn't funniest in the country, but I was Opie and Anthony's funniest listener. And then that show took a dive. But after that show,
What show didn't take a dive? I'm already stumped, by the way, on my Lego, but that's okay.
you didn't even turn to page 1 yet.
Okay, now, well, I keep on. Okay, first is this is page 1.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Got one. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so that was that. So then I did that, and
And how'd you know? Like, what was it at 9 that made you realize you wanted to
A&E
do
Evening at
stand-up?
the Improv.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw that with my friend Jason Pizer, and I said, I want to do comedy. We thought it was so funny. And just became obsessed with it. We would watch every special. Obviously, there wasn't as many specials that there are now, but
It's out of control.
But I just like watched all the specials, and it was the greatest. I loved it.
So is it wild to you that you're doing it now? Like, is it crazy to you that you're still doing it? You're a successful writer. You're doing stand-up. You're getting spots all over the place. You have a monthly show at Largo. Does it hit you like, oh, I did it?
I mean, I'm still doing it, you know. So yeah, no, it's exciting when I think about it. But yeah, I've been doing it for so long now. Like I've been in LA since 2003, and I've just been working and just doing my thing. So and a lot more things I want to do. So, but yeah, no, I guess I would say yeah, it's very very cool that I get to go and perform at the Hollywood Improv, the place that inspired me to do stand-up.
Yeah, that to me. So
especially now because now the Improv has the A&E, Evening at the Improv like light,
Yeah.
in the corner of the thing. So it's really fun to perform there.
Well, that to me is like, so do you look at yourself and you're like, I'm a success, or are you still at that point where, because I feel like every creator or comic specifically has that point where they have imposter syndrome, like I can't believe I'm doing this. Do you look at yourself and you're like, okay, I succeeded at the thing I wanted to do?
Yeah, but there's still a lot of things I want to do.
Like what?
I want to make a movie. I want to get another TV show on the air. I loved having all that kind of stuff.
When did you realize you were funny? Was there a specific point where you're like, oh, I can do this?
I don't know. I think for me it was I was so tunnel vision about comedy that like I was just doing it. There was no other option for me. I was just performing, and I remember being in like middle school writing down funny ideas that I thought, so it's just been everything.
Oh, but you weren't a class clown, right?
I wasn't really a class clown. I was like annoying. You know, I was like very loud, talked all the time. Pretty much how I am now.
And like we come from Jewish families. Was that a supportive endeavor? Like, were your parents supportive with that?
Very supportive.
Yeah. See, I was like doctor, lawyer. Those were
No,
my two
they,
options.
They were. That was part of it. They were always so supportive of me, like the whole time. There was never an option where they were like, maybe don't. Only once my uncle was like, you should have a backup plan.
That's it.
But that's it. But my parents were like, you don't need a backup plan. You're so good.
My parents were like, "Yeah, go to law school as the backup plan." I'm like, "That's an expensive backup plan that will take away from everything."
That's also too much reading.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to just know what you want to do and do it, and that's kind of like one of my college instructors told me, make a list of your hobbies, because I think it's crazy that at 20 years old they expect you to pick a major. Like, this is 20 years old, you have to declare your major, and that's the thing you have to do for the rest of your life, the next potentially 60 years.
Yeah, that's why I feel lucky that I always knew what I wanted to do.
There
was never a question.
And that's why it's interesting to me, because that's so rare. For me, it was either my guidance counselor or my TV instructor was like, make a list of things that you do for free as a hobby right now. There are people that do that professionally, and like look into that.
Right.
And that was the thing that sort of sent me into comedy and TV production and writing and all that fun stuff. So you moved out here. Was there a specific reason you moved out here, a job or anything, or you were just like,
no, I graduated, and me and my buddy AJ, we always wanted to live in LA together. So he graduated in Chicago a little bit before me. And then he moved out here, and I was like, we gotta live near the studios, because that was like where I thought we needed to be. Like I was like, we gotta live near Warner Brothers. And what's so funny, we moved to North Hollywood to be close to Warner Brothers, and I did not work at Warner Brothers until last year.
Oh,
and
wow.
It's so funny. But yeah, we just wanted to be here, and all of my friends moved here. So it was easy. It was an easy decision.
I'm going through that now. A lot of my friends are realizing New York is not the place for entertainment. As much
It
as
isn't? I feel like New York's great.
Oh, I mean, 35 years there, I think it's so much easier to find your people out here. New York is more of the business financial side of entertainment, and I think you have to, I mean, I worked for Law & Order SVU, which...
What did you do there?
I was a new media producer, so like I was responsible. We had partnerships with a bunch of websites like.
Did you get to hang out with Ice Cube?
Yes.
I mean Ice-T.
Ice-T and Coco and his big dog with giant, like the dog needed to be neutered. It was out of control. I love Ice-T. Ice is the best.
When John Mulaney had a sitcom years ago, we had Ice-T do the intro that said like this show is taped in front of a live studio audience, and we just remember being like, "Could Ice-T do it?" And then they're like, "Yeah, I'll do it." That was just a very funny thing that I remember about Ice-T.
Because he has one of those voices.
Yeah, he seems to be down with everything.
Yeah, and he like loves comedy. He's a good dude, which again, like for my first job in TV, you want to be around good people. He was just awesome. Chris Maloney, awesome dude. But yeah, I that job was kind of crazy because I was working for the record label at the same time. So in the day when there were good things that needed to be shot for behind the scenes, I would run over, because the studio is in Chelsea Piers. I would run over there, shoot what I had to shoot, or go after work, get that content on location, wherever, and then come back. So that was like a great first job to kind of see what being on set is like, which for sure, like SVU, it's a lot. They're all over the city. But
wow.
Other than if you're not on a TV show, you have to actively seek out industry in New York. At least that's how I feel, where in LA you throw a rock, you're going to hit a creative, and if you hit it off, you're just meeting cool people that do what you do or have some kind of collaborative potential. But yeah, New York always felt like more of a...
It's funny because I'm like, when like LA seems so insane right now. I feel like everyone I know is moving again. It feels like COVID.
Oh. Well,
I love LA, but it's definitely like it feels like right now. When I first moved here, you had to be here always because everything's here. Now it feels like you don't really need to live here if you don't want to.
I think for
but if you want to be around the community and you want to hang out at the comedy clubs, you want to be friends with the comedians, and you want to do stand up, yeah. But as far as like making things and doing things, you could kind of do it anywhere now, which is the crazy part.
Yeah, I think now it's a little bit easier once you have the relationships built, but I do think that the relationships are easier to build out here than in New York. And just the convenience of driving everywhere, working at your own pace.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But since I've been adjusting to living out here. It's been a rough adjustment because you should not move to LA when you're first 35. Like that's a young man's decision.
Is it? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I moved here when I moved here when I was very young, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think you adjust with anything. You
Well,
adjust
it's hard
easier.
to move here as a 35-year-old who needs a Lego room. Let's be honest.
That was something that I had to not look for when I was finding a place to buy. I was like, okay, we're not going to have a Lego room in this place, but the next one will be
So
good.
what do you do with all your Legos?
So most of them are on display. Some of them, I only collect TV and film Lego. Most of them are on display. I have 2 storage units in New York full of Lego.
Oh my God. How much money have you spent on Legos, you think?
Oh, I mean, how much have I spent? Probably 20, 30 grand, but it's probably because of the value that goes up after they retire. Like this set's probably worth $100 now, but
Did you get it for free?
I get them for really good.
So
Yeah.
they know you.
People know me, yes. In the Lego world.
You're
people-
known in the Lego world.
I'm known in the Lego world.
That's a cool place to be known.
There's cooler places to be known, but it's not on my Hinge profile.
Okay.
They know me at the Lego store. What was the first thing you wrote that you were just
The first thing I wrote or the first thing I worked
first
on?
thing you wrote?
The first thing that I wrote was a movie in high school called Ypsilanti, Michigan. And the second thing I wrote was a movie in college called Bicycle Beer Project.
Okay.
And then there was a thing that I wrote, that was the first thing I wrote, like in LA, called Almost Funny, which was sort of like a mockumentary about following around like a young comedian. This was like such a long time ago. This was like, years and years ago. Kind of ahead of its time, like kind of like Curb, but with stand-up in
Yeah.
like 2005, 2004, which was pretty funny. And it followed me to, I had some awful gig. I forget where it was. Not like somewhere terrible, and we like took a whole camera crew and we filmed. We like, it was like we wrote this whole thing.
Were you the comic in it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was in it. And then I wrote a thing, my buddy Steve, who has ulcerative colitis like you, called Below the Law. That was a cop show that we wrote with that, and we did that.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm trying to think. These are bad answers.
No, it's interesting to.
I'm trying to think. Like the first thing I've written like so many things. Like the first thing that probably we got to shoot for real was a show called Party People for Fox.
Okay.
That was about guys and girls who dress up as children's entertainers at birthday parties. Who are
That's
like a bunch of
interesting.
losers, yeah. And then I did a web series for Crackle called Long Distance Relationship. If you remember Crackle back in the day, and that was very cool because it was a web series about being in a long distance relationship, and then MTV bought it as a pilot. So then I wrote the pilot, and that was the first time I wrote the pilot. And then we made that, and that didn't get picked up. But I did that with Sony. So then Sony hooked me up with the late great Jamie Tarsis, an awesome producer, and then we sold a show to NBC, and that was the first multicam I sold to NBC. And that was, I forget, that was probably 2008, 2009.
Oh, wow.
And then that year, Whitney Cummings got her show picked up, and then I started working on that show, and then, basically, I just from then on, I was just in sitcom writers' rooms.
I think people do have this idea that you come to LA and you just get a writer's assistant gig and you don't have to do your own stuff, and you don't waste your time doing your own stuff. You work on this and then you move your way up. At least in New York, I know a lot of people that's only they were writer's assistants and then they moved up in SVU and all the procedurals. But you have to write your own shit and produce your own shit.
Yeah, I mean, look, you could do it either way. I mean, I have friends who writer assistants who end up becoming executive producers. But when you're a comedian,
Yeah.
your instinct is to do your own thing. So I was always doing my own thing, just because that was sort of the grind that we were all
Yeah.
in. And then also, then you also get to know people. When you're doing stand-up, your friends become people who get shows. Then you get to hire people you want to hire, and I will hire comedians, before I go and look at a list of, oh, you were writer assistant on this show. Well, this person I know is funny because I've been with them like all the time, so I'm going to bring that person on. So like that's sort of how that goes.
Were there any projects that you just were absolutely in love with that didn't get picked up that you'll never understand why?
Oh, 1,000.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also been some that have been picked up, and you get excited, and then they're like, oh, actually, we're not going to make it anymore. You're like, come on!
So close.
Yeah, there's so many times where you're like, oh, I'm going to work on this. This will happen, and then it doesn't. Then there's some stuff that like you think is not necessary. Like there was a show one time I pitched a show, everyone wanted to buy it. It was like multiple bidding wars, and we ended up going with one network, and they have a huge penalty on it, which means that if they don't make it, they have to pay the studio. So you're like, they're going to make the show, and they didn't. They didn't make it. They paid the penalties, nothing mattered. Then the next year I went on a show, pitched it around. No one, one person wanted to buy it, and that went all the way. So it's like you never know like what actually is going to be the one that is the one that goes all the way. Because also, when you're working on shows, it changes as you go. It's like first you pitch a show, then you have a story area, then you have an outline, then you have a script, and like it just gets better or worse throughout those process.
Is there something that you do to help you not take that kind of stuff personally? Are you able to just disconnect and be like, this is out of my control? Or?
No, you fucking freak out.
Okay. There's a lot of things that go through my head that I try to not take personally because
no, it's like always annoying. I mean, it like hurts less now because you're like used to it. I also think doing stand-up for so long, it just prepares you for rejection in a way that no one understands.
Yeah.
So even when you're first in a writer's room, it's so much easier to go from stand-up into writer's room than just be like our writer assistant or a writer who gets a job because everyone's so nervous, And I remember my first job ever, they're like, hey, you don't have to pitch so much. And I was like, oh, I'm just thinking of ideas and I'm just saying them. And then I remember a writer was like, you never care if like people don't laugh at that idea. And I was like, oh yeah, welcome to my life.
I mean, it's.
But no, it sucks. Bad news sucks.
No,
always.
bad news sucks. But like,
Always.
Okay, so you have a show that is everybody wants to buy it. Then it falls through. Do you look at it as I created a bad project now that nobody wants it, or can you say
no? It's like comedy. You blame the audience.
Exactly.
Always. You're like
It's so perfect.
You're like I made this thing. You bought it. Now you have it. Now you don't like it. That is on you because I did my thing. So yeah, you always get mad at them. Always,
Do you prefer writing alone or with partners?
I like to write alone, like my scripts, because I like to be on my own schedule.
Yeah.
But I love being in a writer's room.
Okay, so.
But like when I'm like writing a pilot or a movie, I like to be by myself because I could kind of work like whenever. Like I go to an office and everything, but sometimes if it's like late at night and I have an idea, I'll just like kind of start writing. I do not like the idea of like having to check in with someone and meeting up with them and being like, can you do Tuesday at 11? Okay, let's do, because then by the time you get together, I don't know. That's just my own weird schedule.
No, it makes sense.
Because I've written like a lot of great things with people, but now with my life, just having all these kids and work stuff, it's easier just to be on my own schedule. But I love like collaborating with people. Being in a writer's room is the most fun.
I think that's what I have to get. I have to get better at for me, writing with people is because I need accountability. Like I need to know, we want to get this act done by this date. Otherwise, you could write on your own schedule, but I'm very bad at figuring out what that schedule is for me because of the other stuff that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it's nice having that accountability, but it's so much easier for me to just sit alone and get an idea down on paper. Yeah,
it's just and sometimes you need it. I also like, the cracking the idea is the hardest part. So that's always good to do with people. You know what I mean? But sometimes when it's just easier for me.
How do you separate a good joke for a script versus a good joke for the stage? Because what I caught myself doing now is all of the material that I used to use in stand-up, I'm finding great ways to use them in scripts because I don't do stand-up anymore.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, no, I mean, my stand-up is just pretty much like my life, which is I'm married, 3 kids. You know what I mean? Like I have and like I tell stories from my life and observations from my point of view. So like I'm writing a movie right now about like essentially like a marriage that I'm in. So I'm pulling a lot of stuff from that. But for the most part, my stand-up jokes aren't necessarily like dialogue in
Got
scripts,
it.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, if you got to the point where you were writing a show about your life, it's a lot easier to incorporate that stuff. But yeah, I'm using a lot of like one-off jokes that I had.
Yeah, and sometimes if there's something that works, it's like I'm happy to steal from myself and put it in a movie if I have it. I just don't know if a lot of times that is that can work. Like I always do a joke about how when I take my glasses off, it's when you have glasses and you take them off, it's very confusing, you know. So it's like you trust me, but you see this guy, you're like, what's happening? Is that a turtle? What's going on? It's very confusing. It's like when you see a teacher at the mall, and I feel like that kind of joke I can put into something.
Yeah,
and I feel like I have.
When it comes to doing research for the projects that you're doing, what's the craziest thing you've learned in your research? Have you learned like any? I've learned so many dumb facts just from researching a project that was writing. Is there anything that stands out as like, oh, I didn't know that about this specific topic? Or
no, I guess I'm not writing about interesting things. I just pretty much like all of my stuff is character based, you know.
Got
so
it.
I'm not really doing too much research. I'm working on this like one political thing right now, so I've done some research on sort of like small time politics, but for the most part, no.
That's fair. No, my favorite fun fact I learned, I wrote a pilot about a teacher who takes over a pawn shop in his student's neighborhood, and I read Rick Harrison's book. That he's the guy from Pawn Stars, and I learned this fun fact about pimps that it's the greatest thing ever.
What is it?
Like, did you? I used to think that pimps who wore their bling and like the fur coats and the expensive coats, I used to think that they were just showing off how good of a pimp they are. Like, look at me, I could afford all this stuff. I didn't know that when you're arrested for an illegal activity like pimping, and they could take any of your earnings that you earned illegally. So they could take your cash from you because you earned it illegally. They can't take your property. So they go with their cash, when they get their cash, trade it into the pawn shop for jewelry, expensive stuff that they could wear on themselves. So when they get arrested, they use their rings, their fur coats as bail money.
Oh, geez.
It's wild.
Hey, look at that. The more you know.
The more you know. That's the most interesting fact I
love that.
I've learned from my pimping research. Have you ever gotten into an argument over jokes when you're writing with people or in a writer's room?
No, you argue about everything else. You don't really argue about jokes. I feel like you just talk about anything because it's just like a bunch of people screaming at each other. But yeah, no, I've never gotten in a fight about jokes ever.
It depends on who you're working with. Like my best friend Bethany, that's the other thing I learn about. I learn about things that I'm a dumb straight white dude and I don't know common sense things that I guess I should know. So like, we did a web series for Warner Music Group that we wrote and produced, and it was a show about a record label, and we had a rapper character in there, like this white rapper that was just terrible, said awful things, and we were looking for a throwaway sexual innuendo, like Dirty Sanchez or the Spider-Man or whatever. And so I just threw in some dumb thing like, we're going to call it the Thor. It's when you're having sex with a girl and you hit her with a hammer.
No, you can't say that.
Well, I learned that because she's like, no, we have to.
You learned that?
We have to, because he's supposed to be an awful person. He's supposed to say dumb shit like that. But then she's like, no, we have to change that joke. I'm like, why? She goes, because women get attacked with hammers by their spouses every day. And I Googled it. It is insane how many women get attacked with hammers. Oh, wow. Specifically. Change that joke real quick.
Oh, my God.
What's the one thing you wish you could go back and tell younger Dan?
Just that everything's going to take longer. I'm always in such a rush, you know? So like I was always in such a rush, and I never, even in college, like I didn't go on, I didn't study abroad because I wanted to not take time away from doing stand-up in Boston. So like I've like always just been so tunnel vision about comedy that I probably could have taken that semester in Amsterdam. When all of my friends went to a castle in Amsterdam, I was bombing at like, you know, Larry Lee Lewis's Howard Johnson's. I probably could have skipped that. I probably could have skipped those shows.
Are you trying to say
and could have still been doing Legos with you right now?
Are you trying to say Boston's not cultured?
No, I just So that was probably the only advice that I tell people, because I meet I talk to comics all the time. Like young people will be like, "Will you meet this person and talk to them?" And I love doing that. And that's what I always say is like, it just takes a long time. Like I remember, I think when I met Gary Goldman, he was doing comedy for 6 years, and I was like, wow, 6 years, that seems like so
wow.
long. And it's just a little time,
Because when I met him, he was already like a New York legend. So he was out of Boston, but you met him in Boston.
Yeah.
Gary Goldman's the best.
Interesting.
Do you feel like it's harder to perform in one or the other, or is it?
No, I think I love performing both everywhere. Honestly, I think New York and LA are. New York's New York City, so it's always going to be just that energy, that New York energy you can't get anywhere else. But yeah, I don't feel like I'm one of those people where it's like you can't perform in New York and LA. Like it's
Oh no, I think
everything's so global now. You can perform anywhere. Every city now is the same.
Well, you have like Matt Rife lives in Rhode Island. He's like, I'm getting out of both of them.
But everywhere looks the same. Like if you go to Nashville, if you go to Austin, if you go to West Hollywood, everyone's got a Blue Bottle and a Soho House. It's all the same shit everywhere. So it feels very easy to adapt to anywhere.
If you weren't living in LA, where do you think you'd be?
Boulder.
Really?
I'd like to live in Boulder, yeah. I like Boulder, Colorado. And I'd like to live in I'd like to live in New York City again, because I lived in New York City for a very short amount of time.
I was going to ask if you would ever go back to New York.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, my family's there, but I would like to. But I have lots of kids, so it's a whole situation. We can't just
You can't just take up and move.
Can't just go to like a
Those days are over.
one-bedroom in Hell's Kitchen. Or I lived in a loft bed in Murray Hill when I was 19.
Murray Hill's an experience. Now you go there, it's just kids. They don't even, cars don't exist to them. I drove through the city. They just hang out in the street in Murray Hill. It's the
Really?
craziest thing I've ever seen.
That's so funny.
The bar extends into the
I
street.
am bombing with this Lego stuff, by
You're
the way.
crushing it. You have a lot of pieces connected.
Okay, good. This
Yeah,
am I doing
Taylor
that?
Williamson, and I will shit on him every single episode. Worst builder I've ever seen. Love him to death. Oh, that, yeah.
Okay,
love him to death. Worst builder I've
That's
ever
so
seen.
funny. I do love him.
Taylor's great.
He's such a good dude. We performed, we did a Christmas show together. It was really funny.
If you could change one thing about the state of the industry right now, what would it be?
I wish that there, I don't know. I mean, I guess I just wish there was more stuff happening in LA, more production in LA, more shoots in LA.
Do you think that's actually going to come back? I know there's a big push for it now.
I think so. Why not?
There are a lot of people I know that are just waiting for things to start up that they don't even know if it's going to.
Yeah, I mean, people have been waiting for things to start up since COVID. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess the one thing that I would want for the state industry and the world is just like less natural disasters to fucking completely destroy our life over and over. It's like I feel like anytime LA like gets stable, like, all right, here we go. 2025, we survived. Let's go. Oh God, the whole city.
That's what
burned
it
down.
was. It was like survive till 25, and then it's like we got to 25, everything's burning.
Everything is burning. So it's
Everything's
just,
burning.
yeah. I mean, I got evacuated. It was fucking craziness. It's all.
Yeah,
It's all
I
crazy.
mean, you live near me, and we got very close to being evacuated because of the supposed arson fire on Ventura. I live right off Ventura, right by the hill, and I'm like, oh, if this hill catches fire, we're out of here.
Right.
This whole thing's burning down.
Yeah, it was scary times, but now it rains, so hopefully we're past that right now, but maybe it will turn into some sort of futuristic hail snowstorm, and then we'll be attacked by snow, and then our roofs can't control that, and then the roofs will come crashing in. I mean, who knows what's next in LA?
My roof is leaking from last night, and everybody keeps telling me about mudslides. So I am not looking forward to the next piece of whatever is coming.
Yeah.
If you can take on any property or IP and write a sequel or a reboot of it, is there anything you would want to take a stab at?
Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, I would love to do something with Freddy Krueger.
That is awesome.
Yeah, that would be awesome for me and for my son, but I love horror stuff, and I love that character, and I think that could be kind of cool. We had Freddy Krueger in The Goldbergs, the real actor and everything, but I think that there would be that is a fun world.
Because that's one of the first horror movies I ever saw, and I look at it now as a horror comedy. Freddy Krueger was hilarious.
Yeah, Freddy Krueger's hilarious. I mean, he is, a murdered pedophile who comes back to find you.
Typically
in your
not
dreams.
funny. Typically not a funny
but
guy.
he's a great character. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I feel like he'd be funny on a TV show. I feel like there's a lot of funny ways to play with Freddy.
That's funny. So I had David Howard Thornton in here. He plays Art the Clown from Terrifier. He said, I asked him if he could play any other horror icon. He was like, Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
Because it's just a fun character. minus the pedophile thing.
Exactly.
We do not condone pedophilia here.
We don't. Only Legos.
Only Legos. Is there any character that you would have liked to write for in any of the comedies that you really loved growing up or recently?
Not a character, but like I have friends who like, I know people who've worked on like Raymond and Friends and like Seinfeld, and you hear like those stories sound just like, it seems like a different world, like just, because multicams are so fun to work on, and it would be so fun to be like they were saying like the cast of Friends, they're like rock stars in the 90s, so that would have been that feels like a fun time to be around. I mean, you worked crazy hours, but it seemed like it was worth it. Yeah. But what's cool is a lot of multicams are coming back, and I think like they're here and they're not going anywhere, so they're still there. But I feel like, the 90s in LA seemed the 80s and 90s in LA seemed like completely insane, and it was just like so many shows, so much money, no rules. It seemed great.
Yeah, but also when you look back and you look at some of the weekly ratings for these shows, compared to now, I'm like,
oh yeah, it's not even more people watch like podcasts on YouTube than watch a lot of TV shows. Is the problem.
Well, also nobody wants to report streaming numbers, which I think is insane. But I think part of that goes back to the writers' strike, where if they start revealing how many people are watching their things,
I think they do now though.
Netflix, I don't think still does.
I don't know. I thought they did. I thought they did.
I thought Netflix was really against it. That's why I was curious what was going to go on with the WWE thing, because they rely on those ratings. Those ratings are kind of big for them. But
WWE from Stanford also.
But their new office looks insane. Well, they're still in Stanford, but now they have like their whole production thing is down in Orlando.
Oh, really? I was just in Stanford, last night. So
they moved offices. The old Stanford office just got sold, but they had a really nice office.
The Stanford? No, they have a Stanford building.
Yeah, that one's
the old
nice,
UBS building. It's massive. There's a giant WWE, a giant statue of a belt.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. I'm not like a huge WWE guy, but it was a huge part of the city.
Yeah, no, I used to go down there as a kid because they used to let you go to the WWE shop. Which was inside the building.
I never
and now they can't do that. It's funny when you live somewhere and you just don't check. Like, I've never seen the Statue of Liberty. I've never been to the Empire State Building.
I've been to the Empire State Building. I've never been to the Statue of Liberty.
I've never.
My grandpa came there though.
I have tourists that come in and they're like, "Hey, we want to go on the ferry to go see the Statue of Liberty." I'm like, "I'm not getting on that floating shit from Staten Island." I think we're winding down here.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we're winding down. So
oh my God,
you're ready to go. You're done. You're done with the Lego. You're like,
no, I love this Lego. I think I'm making it happen. This is a great.
You are.
This is a great. It's a great podcast.
Fred could use some hair.
It's a good idea for a podcast. I know you don't need to keep this, but it's a very good idea for a podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it. If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
I wish I was taller.
Really?
No, I don't know.
Oh, because people have said that.
Wait, hold on. Let me think. If I could change one thing about myself, what would it be? I wish that my dad created a slinky. You know what I mean? Like one of those families where their parents created some weird thing and they have $1 trillion. I wish
Slinky family.
I wish that I was part of the Slinky fortune. You know what I mean? That seems fun. To have some generational wealth from the Slinky, or my great grandfather created silly putty during the Great Depression. I wish that was my life.
That might be the best. We've gotten a lot of vain answers on here about height, and that might be the best answer we've gotten. I wish I came from a richer family who invented something.
Yes.
I didn't want them to be really good teachers. I wanted them to be inventors.
I want a specific invention, but it can't be complicated. It needs to be very dumb. You know what I mean? It's oh, hi, nice to meet you. I'm Dan Ritz of the Ritz Cracker fame. I one time met a girl in Boston whose mom was Miss Fields, and I was so trying to date her. And I was like, I need to meet this girl whose mom is Miss Fields. And she never called me back.
She had that Fields money. Well, that's what every time I hear about Heinz Field, in the NFL and the Heinz family, I'm like, yeah, there's a family that created just ketchup.
But that's almost too good of an idea. I want something dumber. I want a Slinky, silly putty, maybe the rubber band for braces. That kind of stuff is what you really
don't get
need.
that kind of fame. You don't want football field money.
No, I'm not looking for fame. I'm just looking for a very specific invention of something very stupid. You know what I mean? That's all I want.
That's actually a really funny sitcom idea. Like the grandkid of someone who invented something so stupid he thinks he should be more famous for it.
Sell it.
Buy it and then don't make it. Let's
Well,
get real.
make that one. We already have the sponsor, whatever the company is that the family made.
All right, so let's see where you're at.
I'm good. I have the beginning of the car. Beginning of the car. You know, I'm not a great multitasker, which I think is the other problem, because I feel like I could get this done in probably 40 minutes, but the way we're talking and it's been interesting, I've been really mostly focusing on the questions, thinking what to say, but I'm pretty close. Considering 40 minutes while talking, this is pretty good.
Yeah, I think that almost looks like a car.
Almost looks like a car.
I think that's pretty impressive.
We did it.
Yeah, I got most of the base done.
Yeah, that looks great.
We'll have to finish this in another episode, but here's where we are. Where can the people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Dan Levy Show. I'm at, Largo once a month. I perform at the Improv and the Comedy Store. I'm kind of everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm going to be launching sort of a tour soon, so look out that. Look for that.
Is there anywhere you're excited to go?
Yeah, I'm excited to go to Denver, and I'm excited to go to Miami.
Okay,
Yeah,
that'll be fun.
Yeah, and then I think I'm going to do shows in London. So I'm excited. Should be fun. Should be a
Cool.
good 2025. We survived.
Don't jinx it. There are
jinx it.
mudslides coming. I've already been told.
Giant explosion goes off. Fuck.
I legit thought Michael Bay has been directing the last 3 weeks of everything. The videos on the news, I was like, this can't be real.
It's insane.
It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
I'm glad we're safe. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. I need the bottle.
Oh, yeah, we can.
Thank you guys for being here. You can follow me at Say It Ain't Sosis. You can follow Building Friendship Series on Instagram. And don't forget, Bobby Moynihan and I have an SNL set on Lego Ideas that you can vote for right now, tinyurl.com/LegoSNL. And Jody Sweeten and I have a Lego Ideas set, the Full House House, tinyurl.com/LegoFullHouse.